Hey guys, this is Mr. V, and I'm going to be reviewing a Stephen King book today. It is the first in the Dark Tower series, and it is called The Gunslinger. I should say first of all that this I have not read The Dark Tower yet. I read book one, but I have not read the whole series. Many people have read the whole series. I have not yet. So you guys are going to see my reviews as I get along with the series. So the thing you guys should know is that basically the book itself is about a guy named Roland. I think it's Roland Deschain, but it's about a guy named Roland and his journey to follow what they call the Man in Black. And he keeps trailing a little bit behind the Man in Black. And Roland is the last gunslinger, and he just keeps trying to catch up to him, and he just can't. And this is his journey. So the thing about this book is it's a what I consider is hard to describe, but it's a very raw book in that sometimes the chapters don't connect as smoothly as most other Stephen King books. And sometimes even the character slightly changes or slightly different among different chapters. And it's because this book was released in 1982. But what Stephen King had done was he had released this, I forget which book but I think it was for a magazine. But he had released this between 1978 and 1981 as 5 different short stories. And then in 1982, he collected all the short stories together and put it out as the book, The Gunslinger. So that's why it doesn't flow as smoothly as some of his other books, because he wrote it over different periods of time, and it kind of makes it, again, it's hard to explain, but it's a very raw feeling. And you know, it's a decent book, but it has a very raw feeling to it. And if you want to see what I mean, you know, you guys can test it, whether it be through Kindle, or if you guys see it in the store, just flip through it a bit and read a little bit just to see what I mean by that. But the one thing you guys should know, and I'm sorry, I'm looking at some of my notes over here, just so I don't forget anything, but that the most of the book is just character development of Roland. You know, and I know it should play out in the series. I know it should. Based off of Stephen King's writing style, I'm almost positive it will play out. But the book is about 300 pages, or just over 300 pages. And it's basically 300 pages of almost pure character development. Yes, there are other characters here and there throughout, and he has encounters with those characters. But this is basically, again, just character development. It's the first in the series. The series has 7 books. You can even say 7.5 books if you count the most recent release. But it is, again, it's basically all character development of Roland. Now, I should also say that, yes, there are times of excitement where some action happens, something happens, but those times are fairly minor. They don't happen too often. And even when they do happen, it's pretty just minor for the build up that it has, because there isn't even much of a build up, but it's just kind of like, you're like, okay, you know, it wasn't, especially when you compare it to other King works, it's just not much excitement. But there still are some times of excitement. So as I said, it's like, you know, some people even call this the prologue to the series. There are many people I've seen online call this the prologue, that The Gunslinger is the prologue to the whole series. And I can see what they mean by that, because, again, this is all character development. But it is 300 pages. So, and I have also heard people say that you should skip this book. Do not skip this book, because this book is very important, because you are getting to know who Roland is. And I know at times it can be very difficult to read, but you want to make sure you don't skip this book, because you're starting, again, it's basically all character development. And there are still minor times of excitement. But yeah, many people have called it the prologue. Now, one thing I should suggest is that you read at least 3 books, I'd recommend at least 5 Stephen King books before picking this book up. The reason being is you want to know how Stephen King writes, and you want to know how he develops his stories, how things go, and the character development, the scenery development. You want to know all of that before jumping into this book. And that's why I would say even beyond 3, I would say you want at least 5 to have read 5 Stephen King books before having read this, just because you don't want to be turned off by Stephen King's writings, but also by the series. Um, and you should also, before reading this, have an idea of how you want to finish the series, or at least you plan to get a certain amount into the series. You want to be committed to the series, as you don't want to pick this up, even if you're a Stephen King fan, you don't want to pick it up as just a shrug of the shoulders and see, I'll test how book 1 is. I had already planned that I was going to finish the series. And unless the series goes way downhill, I'm going to finish the series. So that's why you don't want to just pick it up at a shrug of the shoulder. Whereas other of his books, you don't generally shrug shoulders at his other books, but you can pick them up and start to read it and not have like, all right, after I read book A, I'm going to read book B and then book C. It's just, you can start reading it. And that's how it goes. But for this one, you kind of want to plan to stay with the series. I've heard others say it online as well. You don't want to just pick it up randomly. And what I mean by that is I actually have a story for that. And that's why I said you want to have read at least 5 of Stephen King's books. I have read, I forget the exact number right now, but I have read over 20 of his books now, to where I consider myself a pretty hardcore fan for that extent. And what had happened was when I was back in high school, this is about 15 years ago, I had a friend who was a big Stephen King fan, and he loved The Dark Tower. And at that point, the series wasn't even over. And I think it was like, I forget what year exactly, but I was in high school, and he told me to read The Dark Tower, #1, The Gunslinger. And I just thought, again, it didn't flow, but it didn't interest me. Things didn't capture me. And then also some of the, you could say the climax, as I said, there is still things of excitement, but it's very minor. I thought, wow, this is very minor, and it just, the book bored me. And it made me stop the series. It made me not want to go back to Stephen King for many years. To where, that's why I say you want to have a sense of who Stephen King is and how his writing is before you go into this. So, again, I only recommend this book if you know Stephen King and you plan on reading the series, because you don't want to just stop after book 1, because I could see why many people may stop after book 1. Because again, I still enjoyed it enough, but I can see why people would stop, because it's over 300 pages, and some people say it's almost prologue. But I still recommend you guys go pick it up on a scale of 0 to 10, with 0 being absolutely horrible, 5 being average, and 10 being go pick up the book tomorrow. I would rate this book about a 2.5, maybe a 3. Again, 5 is the average. So a book that I would rate 5 is the average, but I would still only rate it about a 2.5 or a 3. And it's because, it's just all character development about Roland. I know that will play out in the end based off of who he is as a writer, but it can be difficult to get through. But it's still, it's a 2.5, maybe a 3, but 2.5. But you definitely want to finish the book. You don't want to move on. You don't want to read just summaries online. Make sure you guys go pick up the book. Despite it not getting a super high rating from myself, I'm still glad I read it. And I know it's going to pay off when I read more of The Dark Tower. Anyway, if you guys have any comments, please comment below. I hope you hit the subscribe button or the like button. And just know, again, for Dark Tower 1, I rated it with a 5 being average. I rated it anywhere from a 2.5 to a 3. But this is Mr. V Thank you for watching.